ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tech Showdown. My name is Kevin. This is my co-host Teddy, and today we're going to be talking about the GTX 1080. So this is just basically what I think of it so far and some of the things that stood out to me since it's been announced and now that we've had a bit of time to let the dust settle a little bit on it. But first thing I want to tell you guys about is Nvidia. Now, I know you guys have been going crazy with me for calling it Nvidia, so I'll start trying to say it the correct way to stop annoying all you guys. So, Nvidia in Australia and New Zealand are going to be giving away a GTX 1080 for launch. So, obviously, this is only going to be for Aussies and Kiwis. But yeah, that's a great opportunity, so I'll leave the link down below to the forums and you can go and enter that and you could win a GTX 1080 for launch, which would be pretty cool. So let's jump straight into it then, and we'll start with the main thing, the Pascal GPU that's going to be powering the 1080 and also the 1070. It might be powering some other things as well. So it's a 16 nanometer FinFET GP104 GPU with 2,560 CUDA cores on the 1080. So that's a little bit shy of what you get on a 980 Ti, which has 2,816. And you're also going to be getting 2,048 CUDA cores on the 1070, which runs the same GPU, which is exactly the same as what you will get on a GTX 980. So that is pretty cool. Now this is really interesting because they're finally going down. I mean, we were stuck on 28 nanometer for a long time, so it's really great that they've gone down to 16 nanometers, so I really like that. So these are going to be extremely powerful and look like they're going to be extremely good in terms of performance per watt. Now TDP wise, it's going to be coming in with a TDP of 180 watts for the 1080, which is pretty decent, I think, when you consider that the 980 Ti and the Timex both had TDPs of 250 watts. And the 1070 is going to be coming in with a TDP of 150 watts, which is actually less than a 980, which is at 165 watts. So that's quite cool as well. So some good efficiencies there. As I said, it's going to be coming with 2 times the performance per watt of Maxwell, so that's a really good improvement there, so I really do like that. Now, one feature that stood out to me a lot that I think some people might have glazed over a little bit is GPU Boost 3.0. So as you guys know, Nvidia's had GPU Boost 2.0 out for quite some time now. But yeah, this is going to be a good improvement there. It's basically kind of like an auto overclocking feature that they have. But the speeds coming out of these Pascal GPUs is just insane. So the 1080 from factory should be, you should be seeing speeds of over 1,700 megahertz. So 1,700 megahertz out of the factory with GPU Boost 3.0. That's absolutely crazy. And with overclocking, you're going to be able to get it well over 2,000 megahertz, which just shows how far we've come. And this is a massive jump as well. Remember back when the 970 and 980 were released, and people were saying like, wow, look, they're going up, you know, well over 1 gigahertz, all the way up to sort of like 1,300 megahertz and stuff, and people were astounded back then. So this is another huge jump there. So that's going to be really interesting to see, and especially interesting to see when we get the non-reference ones, just to see how fast they're going to go, you know, really high-end edition ones. It'll be quite interesting to see how high they can actually go with proper overclocking. Now, it's also coming with, it can do asynchronous computing, which is really good. That'll be a big thing for DirectX 12, because right now Nvidia is getting pretty slaughtered when it comes to DirectX 12 performance, but this should bring them right back into the fray in theory, but we'll have to see when we actually start reviewing it. But yeah, this was a really good thing also that I quite liked. Now, one thing that people seem to be quite lost on is these Founders Edition graphics cards from Nvidia, I should say. So yeah, this is quite interesting. So they're not actually coming out with a reference model. The Founders Edition is going to be the reference. So don't think there's a reference model and the Founders Edition, and the Founders Edition is one binned, you know, super binned GPU in it. That's simply not the case, guys. There isn't going to be a reference model per se. There's only going to be the founder's model, which isn't going to be an extra bin one. It's just going to be a Nvidia sold blower style graphics card like they've done in the past. Now it is coming with a bit more of a price premium, which makes me wonder a little bit why, but we'll have to see once we actually get it. However, they have redesigned the stock cooler. The stock blower cooler now has a vapor chamber cooling and better acoustics, so that should be quite good. And they do have their place, these blower style coolers, because they exhaust all the hot air out the rear of your case, which means they're a lot more ideal for people doing mini ITX builds and things like that. So don't sell them short. I think this will still have its place, but I'm a bit sort of perplexed with the fact that it's going to be coming in at a higher price than what the retail will be on the non-reference cards. But we'll have to see once we actually get to testing them. Now, the second biggest thing that we need to talk about is the memory. So the 1080, but not the 1070, will be coming with GDDR5X. So this is the improvement over GDDR5, which the 1070 will be getting. So both cards will be getting 8 gigabytes of memory. That's absolutely plenty. That's heaps. I have no problems with that. It's a really, really good amount to be coming out with. And basically, GDDR5X is an updated version of GDDR5. It has 2 times the data rate though, so that's going to be a big thing. For example, at 1.75 gigahertz, you're going to be seeing a data rate of 14 gigabits per second on GDDR5X over the 7 gigabits per second of GDDR5 that we've kind of been used to seeing. So that's really cool. That means, in theory, you should be able to get a 448 gigabits per second speed on the 256-bit bus that the 1080 and 1070 have retained from the GTX 980 and 970. And when you compare that to the 980 Ti, which has a 384-bit bus, but it only has a theoretical speed, max speed of 336 gigabits per second, you can see that it's still a very big jump up there. So the GDDR5X is going to be quite an improvement. Not only that in performance, it's also using only around 70% of the energy that GDDR5 would take. So it's kind of like what we saw when we went to DDR4 from DDR3. You got the extra speed, but you also got the extra power efficiency. So that's a really cool thing to note as well. It is a good jump up, GDDR5X from GDDR5. However, it's not as huge of a jump up as, say, HBM and HBM2 are. So it's still good, and it's still going to be very good for the 1080. I'm not trying to sell it short. I'm just letting you guys know that it's more of an incremental improvement, a good incremental improvement, but it's not really like this huge brand new sort of thing like HBM is. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, with all of this being said, I want to tell you guys straight away, I was seeing people online just going crazy and saying, wow, the 1070 is going to be more powerful than a Titan X and all this other stuff. And I'm not trying to sort of ruin the hype or anything. I'm just trying to bring it back to reality a little bit. So wait until you see independent benchmarks, because time and time again we'll see stats released by AMD or Nvidia saying about the performance of their new graphics card and saying, look how much more powerful it is compared to our other ones and everything like that. And then when it gets independently tested, we see that it can be a little bit different, or they've maybe cherry picked what they were testing it in to show the biggest discrepancy and other things like that. So I'm not trying to ruin the hype. Just try, let's be realistic, guys. Let's wait until there's independent benchmarks out there, and then you can see, how it actually compares to Nvidia's lineup and also compare it to AMD's lineup. Now let's talk about some of the new features that come with Pascal. So the first one I want to talk about is Ansel, which will allow you to take sophisticated in-game screenshots. Now this is game dependent, it's not going to be for all games, but it's quite a cool thing. So it basically hooks into the game and it allows you to take these just awesome screenshots. So that will be pretty fantastic. Also allows screenshots up to 61,000 pixels wide. Wow. Okay, so if you really want to do that, I don't know if you want to get it printed on something and then frame it on your wall like this massive huge image or something, then go for it, I guess. But it's also going to allow 360-degree shots in VR. Now, while we're talking about VR, let's talk about Nvidia VRWorks Audio, which basically allows the audio to bounce off surfaces for a more realistic reverberation. So this is going to add a lot of immersion to your VR gaming experience. And, I think this is a really cool idea, and I hope it really starts to take off, because it's just going to add another dimension to the gameplay. And I think it's just going to be absolutely fantastic once we start getting more heavily into VR gaming, which I would say is kind of the future and what we're trending towards right now. Another thing I really like is the simultaneous multi-projection, which is basically a new rendering pipeline for Pascal. So this allows them to render 16 independent viewpoints in a single pass. Now you might wonder, well, what does that matter really? Well, it's gonna be great for people running a multi-monitor setup, like quite a few of you probably do, especially a triple monitor setup, to stop the warping of the image. So that'll be really cool as well. Some of you might have noticed that with multi-monitor setups, but also it'll stop the warping in VR as well, so that'll be a big thing too. So this is a really cool thing, just to make the experience even better for those people out there running, say, a triple monitor setup. It's going to be really quite cool for those people. Now let's talk about the I/O and power connections. So both the 1080 and the 1070 are going to be coming with a single 8-pin power connector from the factory. So obviously we're going to probably see more, on the non-reference. Well, there isn't a reference anymore, but the aftermarket SKUs will probably run, the really high-end ones will probably run dual 8 pins like normal. But this is still really cool. If you remember when the 980 launched, it had 2 6-pin power connectors, and everyone was going like, wow, look at that, Maxwell's power efficiency. But this is even better, with the single 8-pin on the 1080. That's pretty amazing. That's really showing Pascal's power efficiency. So I really do like that. Now, as far as I/O goes, both of them will be coming with 3 DisplayPort 1.4 ports. I really like this. This is a cool step forward. So that's going to allow 8K at 60 Hertz. You heard that right. Wow. If you really want to go that crazy. But what's even more cool is 4K at 120 Hertz. So a high refresh rate 4K monitor. That's going to be really awesome. And I'd really look forward to testing it, although the graphics horsepower to power that would be pretty enormous. So yeah, that's something to take into consideration. It also gives expanded audio transport and forward error correction, which is a really cool technology, so I'd check that out if you're interested at all in that sort of thing. The other one that's going to be featuring on both the 1070 and the 1080 is HDMI 2.0B. So this is the latest iteration of HDMI 2.0. So that's really cool. It's coming with a bandwidth of up to 18 gigabits per second, enables transmission of HDR video, or high dynamic range video, and it has up to 32 audio channels. So that's really cool as well. I really like that they're going with this. It's also coming with dynamic synchronization of the video and audio streams. So this is just a upgrade over what we had before, which was HDMI 2.0A. Again, a more incremental upgrade, but an upgrade nevertheless, so you may as well take advantage of it. And it's also coming with a DL-DVI port, which is going to be really good moving forward for all the next-gen displays that are going to be coming out in the future. And the last point we have to touch on is the price. So the 980 launched for $550 US. Now the 1080 is going to be launching for $600 US, and $100 more than that if you want the Founders Edition graphics card, which makes me kind of wonder a little bit. But yeah, so this is a little bit more expensive. However, Nvidia said that they spent something like $2 billion US on research and development. So maybe it's going to be to try recoup a bit of those costs. And honestly, when we look back at it, between sort of the say the 680 to the 780, or even the 580 to the 680 and stuff like that. This jump from the 980 to the 1080 is the biggest I've ever seen. There's just so many new things coming out with it, so it is the biggest jump I have ever seen from between the two graphics cards from Nvidia. Now the 1070 is also going to be a bit more expensive, so it's going to be coming in at $380 US. This is $50 more than what the 970 came in at, so that's another thing to keep in mind. And something that a lot of the reviewers, they all seem to be focused on the 1080, which is, you know, probably because it's going to be the most powerful, and it's coming with all this new technology in that, like the GDDR5X and stuff. However, I think the 1070 is going to be a real hit, especially if the performance is as good as Nvidia is touting. It's going to be very, very appealing to a lot of people out there. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that 1070, because I think it's going to be an absolutely superb value for money graphics card. However, we have to talk about Polaris from AMD. So AMD is saying that this is going to be at a mainstream price, which means I think that AMD is going to try undercut. Probably they're not going to be chasing the 1080, but I'd be wary of buying maybe a 1070 outright until we see what Polaris has to offer, because it might give the same performance as, say, a 1070 but at a lower price. So maybe hold off on jumping on the 1070 straight away until we have a bit more information about Polaris. But even all that aside, honestly, this is really exciting. I can't wait to do the showdowns with the 1080 and also the 1070. I'm going to do a bunch of them. We're going to be testing out everything. It's going to be really fun. And this is probably the most excited I've been for a graphics card for a very long time. Probably the Fury X was also very exciting, you know, being the first one with HBM and all that. So this should be very, very good, and I have very high expectations from the 1080 because Nvidia has hyped it up a lot, and I think it's going to fulfill most of them. So subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already, so that you catch all my showdowns with the GTX 1080 and 1070 as soon as they drop. Remember to check out the description for the competition that you can win the GTX 1080 for when it launches. However, it's only for people in Australia and New Zealand. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.